So the Stokes family has left an enduring legacy on this city and our nation. Carl Stokes was the first African-American mayor of a major American city. And you know, when you are the first in anything and you break that glass ceiling, you get a lot of splinters, right? But you're paving the path forward for others. As mayor, he set an agenda to meet the needs of Cleveland residents, regardless of their racial and ethnic background. His brother, Louis Stokes, played a groundbreaking role in the legal and political life, not only of Cleveland, but of this nation, serving 15 consecutive terms, that's 30 years of his life as an Ohioan congressman. He was a leading figure in the Black Democratic Caucus. As many of you know, many facilities, streets, federal buildings, and scholarships acknowledge the enduring legacy of the Stokes family. Miss Laurie Stokes is our inaugural Change Leader lecturer. I've come to know Laurie over the past several months, and anyone who interacts with her just say, Dexter, wow, she's such a warm, genuine, empathetic individual, and you'll get a chance to see some of that on display here today. She's a member of our visiting committee, a distinguished community scholar, and distinguished community scholars are individuals who have made a mark in their particular discipline or sector, and they now join the Mandel School to help advance our mission of social inclusion and social justice. And she's also a member of the Dean's Advisory Committee. Laurie retired, early retirement, I'll say, because she looks nowhere near retirement age, from a successful broadcasting career in New York City. And as you know, New York City is the largest television market in the country. Now, what better way to introduce a television media broadcast journalist, but with a media clip, right? So we're going to introduce Laurie with a media clip.
You, the viewer, have given me the greatest gift a journalist can ever have, not only to welcome me into your homes every morning for 20 years and now in the evening for 2. I am so proud to have been here for you in the city's darkest and brightest moments.
We've heard some witness accounts as this happened at 8:45. As we continue to bring you the very latest.
Soon after she arrived at Eyewitness News, Laurie was on the air for hours, bringing viewers up-to-the-minute information on one of our nation's darkest days, the terror attacks of September 11th.
Of course, we'll be with you over the next hour covering the snow and any problems that it's causing.
We can't even count how many mornings Laurie and the AccuWeather team got our viewers through brutal weather, especially the biggest storm of them all, Superstorm Sandy.
Cleanup is just going to be a monster in itself.
You can see I'm on the National Mall right now. It's very quiet behind me, the U.S. Capitol.
One of Laurie's best contributions to Eyewitness News is her deep knowledge of politics. She grew up in a political family. Her father, the late Congressman Louis Stokes.
Stokes used the GI Bill to earn undergraduate and law degrees, eventually opening a law firm with his brother Carl, where he represented Cleveland's most disenfranchised citizens, trying to eliminate discrimination and segregation. In 1967, Stokes' work with the NAACP led to the creation of the majority-black 21st Congressional District. Stokes reluctantly put his law career on hold and campaigned. Winning the election with 75% of the vote, Stokes immediately went to work, helping to establish the Congressional Black Caucus in 1971, a group that promoted economic, educational, and social issues important to African Americans.
I couldn't go to Washington and just do it like an ordinary white congressman would do. I had to set a standard so that whoever came behind me would have a standard by which they could live and operate in the Congress. And so, in essence, I wrote the book.
In Congress, Stokes made his mark, earning a seat on the House Appropriations Committee and steering millions of dollars toward housing and urban development projects, job placement programs, and health clinics in Cleveland and the state of Ohio. During his long tenure in Congress, Louis Stokes' enlightened leadership moved the country forward, socially, economically, and legally, changing the landscape of American politics, setting new precedents, and leaving a legacy of achievement and leadership.
Lori also covered the inauguration of President Obama, as well as numerous political conventions.
Hopefully the president is now well rested. He certainly has a lot of work cut out for him. Reporting on the last night of the Democratic National Convention, Lori Stokes, Eyewitness News. I'm also proud of the footprint and path I've carved for other women in the business to follow. My father told me to find a career that brings me happiness. I did. You will never know how much it has meant to me to be here for you and to serve this great city. Dean Voisin, now you have me crying. This is not supposed to happen. That was, wow. Brings back a lot of memories. And of course, it's great to see my dad there. Good morning, everyone. I can't hear you. Dean Voisin, thank you for the gracious introduction, very generous. I hope I can live up to the challenge of delivering on this inaugural keynote speaker. I hope it will be the first of many more, and that you all won't axe this after my time. To the faculty members of the Mandel School and Case Western Reserve University community, returning students, those who are watching on live stream, ladies and gentlemen, let me just give a heartfelt welcome to the Case Western Reserve University Mandel School of Applied Social Sciences incoming students, class of 2024. Good morning and welcome. So you did it. You're here. You're prepared. At least you think you're prepared. I know for some of you it wasn't easy. There were sacrifices. Others, I know it was a breeze. Some of you, like a young girl I met yesterday, Natalie, who's here today. Hi, Natalie. As I was at La Albatross having a glass of wine. She told me that she completed her undergrad, took a gap year for 2 years, went to Japan and taught. So I know a lot of you did your own, you didn't come straight from undergrad, you took your own path here. And that's what it's all about. But what I do know about all of you, and mark my words, that all of you are going to change lives. And I'm going to tell you again, you are going to change lives through your leadership and your advocacy. There are about 400 returning Mandel students, 2 of which are here now for the very first time. All of you smart, all of you diverse, coming from countries, Ghana, Lebanon, China, India, Nigeria, South Korea, so many others, plus 31 states. It is truly a melting pot, and it is beautiful. Now, when I came in, all of you all were chatting. So I was going to have this exercise for you to do. I was going to have you turn to the person in front of you or back of you on the side, this side, that side, and introduce yourselves and tell your name, and that's it. But I think all of you know each other's names now, right? Do you still want to do this exercise? Somebody that you didn't talk to, just introduce yourself and say hello. Do it right now. You can get up, whatever you have to do. Oh, I love it. Okay. Okay. Stop. This is like crazy. All right. Very good. Shh. Shh. Okay. Silence. Okay, let me continue. Now you have a name. You've introduced yourself, ladies. Okay. Well, that was exciting. Okay. You're going to remember that moment. I'm going to remember that moment, for that matter. I promise you. More importantly, it's going to be a life-changing moment. Maybe not right now, but I can tell you that aha moment is going to come for you, and
I want you to remember where you were when it started. So it's been a long time since I was at an orientation, and when I refer to that, it was my undergrad. I'm not at your level of going for a master's, but my orientation was at the Ohio State University in the summer of 1980. Yes, back when Jimmy Carter was president. The Summer Olympics had just wrapped up in Moscow, but the U.S. wasn't present because we were boycotting the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. We were in the middle of a heat wave, kind of like we are right now. And the first 24-hour news channel, CNN, had just been launched. Little did I know at the time, as an English major and a poli-sci minor, that in just 16 years, I would become the first African American to speak on another newly 24-hour news channel, MSNBC. In my 40-year career as a broadcast journalist, I was blessed to change lives, to inspire generations, all while having a front row seat, covering monumental and impactful stories, interviewing the famous and the infamous, and breaking news. But for me, first and foremost, as a journalist, I loved reporting about people. People who changed lives or people whose lives were changed. And the challenge for me was always, how do I give this person justice, the justice they deserve? And the word justice, I think, is going to play a pivotal role in your lives as you advocate for others. So I'm the mother of two daughters. My oldest is now 32 years old. She graduated from George Washington University. My younger daughter is 29, and she graduated from Georgetown University. The other day, I asked my younger daughter, Nikki, if she remembered her college orientation 11 years later. So she said she doesn't remember the gentleman who spoke, and maybe you won't remember me, but she does remember what he told them, that all of them were at the top of their class. But now, for the first time, they are surrounded by the top, as you are. And as you enter this next stage, now who will you be? Will you be a leader or a follower? You can really make that decision right now. I'm going to tell you a story. It's going to help you understand why you're here, why you have been chosen. This wasn't just a coincidence. Darts were not thrown up in the air. You are at one of the most prestigious schools in the nation. And you're now under the leadership of Dean Voisin, who does not believe in mediocrity. He demands excellence, people with humanity and humility and vision and compassion and an understanding of advocacy and leadership, particularly when it comes to social justice and social change. Maybe some of you have grown up with advocacy as a priority. Maybe you established fundraisers in your hometown, you've given back to your community or donated your time to a cause. But I'm here to tell you that your commitment to social work on a national and international stage begins today. Your advocacy will morph into creating greatness and empowering others. It will be an extension of who you are. I grew up in a household where I was taught from day one to make a difference. In the Stokes household, it is in our DNA to give back and to be an advocate. My father served this great nation in the U.S. Congress for 30 years and argued the landmark Supreme Court case of Terry versus Ohio. We all know that as stop and frisk. You see, when he was 12 years old and a paper boy, he would read the newspapers that he delivered. And what stood out to him were the injustices that black males endured, particularly in the South, such as the story of Emmett Till, which became a landmark case as well, one that first addressed racism and injustice. And this was the moment that he decided that he wanted to fight against legal injustice. His career path ultimately, of course, took him into politics. 1968, he was elected Ohio's first African-American congressman. He could now work from within the system, fighting legal and social injustices in the halls of Congress for better housing and education and medical care and economic power for the disenfranchised. So his story was not paved in gold. My father used to say, growing up here in Cleveland, he was poorer than poor. He and his brother Carl literally came from the mud. Their mother, Louise, was a sharecropper picking cotton in Georgia who migrated here to Cleveland for a better life, where she met their father, who worked in a laundromat, a marriage that was short-lived. He died shortly after of acute peritonitis when my dad was only 3.5. So my father's mother, suddenly widowed with a 7th grade education, knew only one way to earn money, and that was as a domestic. She referred to it as in service. She had her mother come up from Georgia to watch her children while she would take 3 trolley cars to the other side of town to clean homes, scrub toilets and floors for wealthy white folks, sometimes spending the whole week taking care of their children, only to come home bone-tired with calloused hands, making only $8 a day. Often her employees would give her their children's clothes. My father would wear them, then he'd hand them down to Carl. They used to nail the tops of tin cans over the holes in the floorboard so that the rats wouldn't come up. They would cozy up to a potbelly stove for warmth in our Cleveland winters, and the 3 of them slept in one bed. So my grandmother used to tell her boys to get something in your head so you don't have to use your hands like I have. Get an education and be somebody. That mantra dictated everything that my father did from that moment. Let that be your edict as well, to not only be somebody, but to be somebody's advocate and lead them to a better life. There was another Black woman who was instrumental in my father's life as a child, a social worker. In 1926, Ella Mae Johnson was one of 2 Black students admitted to what was Western Reserve School of Applied Sciences, Social Sciences. If her name sounds familiar, she was invited to sit on the stage at the U.S. Capitol in 2009 to witness the inauguration of President Barack Obama. Now remember, I told you your advocacy will morph into creating greatness and empowering others. It will be an extension of who you are. Ms. Johnson earned her master's degree here in the 1920s, went on to work for both the Cuyahoga County Department of Welfare and the government's Aid to Dependent Children, which distributed financial aid to single women. Ella Mae became my grandmother's caseworker by giving her not only financial help, but I have to believe that she saw how hard my grandmother worked for so little and how she loved her 2 boys so desperately. She saw her not as a number, but as a human being with dreams and hopes for the only 2 people who mattered in her world. So with the money and the counseling that my grandmother, my father, and my uncle received, they were able to move into a brand new public housing development called Othwaite here in Cleveland. For the first time, they had indoor plumbing, heat, their own bedrooms. With Ella Mae's advocacy, they had pride, they had security. Ella Mae Johnson's social advocacy helped to put my father on the path of advocacy in the highest courtroom in the nation, the Supreme Court. Advocacy in one of the nation's highest legislative bodies, the United States House of Representatives. And after a 30-year career as one of the nation's most prominent leaders in Congress, advocacy in one of the nation's best collegiate institutions as a distinguished visiting professor here at the Mandel School of Applied Social Sciences. It was full circle. So my father would tell you he had a Horatio Alger's type of life, not so much rags to riches, believe me, but poverty to power. He and my Uncle Carl, who became Cleveland and this nation's first black mayor of a major U.S. city in 1967, did what their mother told them to do, to be somebody. So that leads me to my story. After a year and a half at The Ohio State University, we didn't call it that back then when I went, believe me, it became very prestigious later. I attended HBCU, Howard University, where I majored in broadcast journalism and minored in criminology, which explains why I like to watch SVU so much. At the time, I worked for a local TV station running teleprompter for the morning news anchor, and then I would drive across town to Howard's campus. It didn't take long before I got my first on-air job in 1987 in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, as a weekend anchor. As a black female journalist, I knew the power I had and the responsibility to report the truth in my community, to be an advocate for social justice. I knew my voice mattered, and my experience as a black woman allowed me to have a perspective white colleagues didn't have. I had to be a leader. So whether it was covering the O.J. Simpson trial, or George Floyd, or a presidential race, or stories involving racism and discrimination, not only did I report it, I of course also experienced it. Whether I was covering the deaths of young black children who were victims of gunfire, or going undercover as a homeless woman for 3 days on the streets of Baltimore, which not only changed my life, but also helped to shape the perception of that community. From breaking news on the death of fashion designer Gianni Versace to anchoring for 7 hours from the MSNBC news desk during the search for JFK Jr., as well as you saw, anchoring on September 11, 2001, reporting on one of this nation's darkest days. I've always aimed to tell the story truthfully, and I've tried to give the people in the story, justice. Now, to be clear, I did have fun along the way. I mean, it wasn't all gloom and doom. I jogged with Oprah. I danced with the Rockettes. I interviewed folks like Ice-T and John Batiste. I covered the New Year's Eve ball drop. I even had a cameo in the movie, A Simple Favor. But as Dean Voisin said, I retired from broadcasting almost 2 years ago, after 40 years in the business. And right before I went on the air, I was texting with a dear friend, and he knew I was feeling very emotional and confident with my decision to retire, but also scared of the unknown and what was next. And he texted me, "Turn the page and believe that something magical is on the other side." Well, today, I'm on the board of trustees at the Cleveland Clinic. I have the honor, of course, of being an advisor to Dean Voisin, sitting on the visiting committee, being a distinguished visiting community scholar right here at the Mandel School. And this morning, I have the distinct honor of speaking to this class. So I think the quote is applicable to this incoming class as well. As you turn the page, there's a reason you're here in Cleveland, Ohio. There's a reason that you are here at the Mandel School. You are needed here. This community needs you. Selfishly, after you complete your years here and get your master's degree, we'd like you to stay and give back. You've come to a city at a time of crisis. Not completely, but issues that you will be addressing. Child poverty rate right now at 45.9%, the highest in Ohio, the highest in any city in the U.S. with a population of over 300,000. According to the Center for Community Solutions, Cleveland's poverty rate is 2.5 times the national average of 12.8. And when it comes to infant mortality, here in Cleveland, black babies die more than twice the rate of white babies, and countywide, more than 3 times the rate of white babies. In fact, right here at the Mandel School of Applied Social Sciences, it is a priority that we address societal issues like these. With First Year Cleveland, a public-private partnership housed right here to address root causes, stress of racism, implicit bias, and healthcare inequities. Under the leadership of Angela Newman White, we are working to be a fighting city for Black women. But there are so many areas in which you will excel. You are in the business of solutions for the vulnerable, for the disenfranchised, for those who face challenges in life. And it spans from health to politics to economics to courtrooms to prisons to education and policy. And it will come from your leadership. Remember I told you you're going to change lives? And so will the person whose name you just learned. Your years are going to go by in the blink of an eye. There's a famous poem by Dr. Benjamin Mays. My father used to use it in a lot of his speeches. I have only just a minute, only 60 seconds in it. Didn't seek it, didn't choose it, but it's up to me to use it. I must suffer if I lose it, give account if I abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but eternity is in it. So I ask you, what will you do with your minute, and how will you change a life? Here at the Mandel School, we are proud of you. We are your community. We look forward to working with you. We want to see you succeed, and we are here for you. And you are going to change the world. You too will be your own version of an Ella Mae Johnson, fighting for social justice and being a leader in a time when we need you the most. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Looking forward to seeing what you do next.